Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Can you feel my excitement oozing from me? 2 weeks ago, Disney Plus premiered the video version of the smash Broadway hit Hamilton, and it broke the internet. You might remember my daughter, who is like the de facto president of the Hamilton fan club. And of course, David is her favorite character.
Okay.
But she made me sing a few lines from one, and I chose the one that I could do, My Shot, because I could never... I could never sing the lyrics that David sings.
Yeah, well, back in 2015, Hamilton created history, actually, by being the first of many, the first Broadway musical with predominantly hip-hop and rap, which was, of course, written by genius Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It was the first Broadway musical to have predominantly Black and Latin American actors playing the lead, and get this, playing roles of the white U.S. founding fathers. Our next guest originated the roles of Thomas Jefferson and Marquis de Lafayette in Hamilton. Yes, he played two parts for which he won both a Grammy Award and Tony Award.
Now, since leaving Hamilton, he plays a recurring role in television series Blackish, and he co-starred in the films Wonder and Velvet Buzzsaw. David also wrote, produced, and starred in the 2018 film Blind Spotting, which earned him a nomination for the Independent Spirit Award for Best Male Lead. As of 2020, I'm sure you've seen him starring in a television adaptation of Snowpiercer.
And he's our guest this morning. Listen, I'm so excited. And I understand he's also experienced a true Trini Carnival.
Yes, he definitely
with you,
has.
Rokas.
Yeah, we went for Carnival.
Hello, David.
Hello.
Oh, I'm so,
Morning, bro.
so
How you
happy
doing?
to have you.
Good morning. It's good to see you, Rokas.
So listen, Disney Plus has exposed Hamilton to a whole new audience. What was it like for you going through that excitement all over again over the last few weeks?
It's a trip. I still haven't watched it,
I have twice.
I don't like watching myself, so I haven't seen it yet. But it was Broadway's a tough ticket. It's hard to get into. It was a very expensive show, and with Hamilton, the seats would get bought up so quick and then sold on the secondary market. So it became very, very expensive. It became like a status symbol to see that show. And for us, it was always a question of how do we get more people in here? How do we get some of the folks who can't normally afford these tickets to get to see this show? And we were always, coming up with ways. The whole front row, they would sell via lottery for $10 every show, but then there would be 10,000 people entering the lottery every day. It's just crazy. It's hard to democratize Broadway like that. And so kind of the nice thing about it coming out now on Disney Plus is that much more people can have access to it. More people watched it in the first day that it was out than ever have seen the show ever in any of on Broadway or any of the touring companies all put together.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If Hamilton were made into a feature film right now, would you want to be in it? Or are you Hamil out?
I don't know, man. It depends on what they're going to ask me to do. My knees I'm like jumping off tables and stuff. I did that for years. My body is beat up from that show. I don't need to.
How significant is Hamilton for you? And what it's meant in 2015 and now in 2020, 5 years later, in the center of the Black Lives Matter movement. What does it mean for you now? Does it take on a different meaning?
Yeah, for me, when we did it, Hamilton was really a child of the Obama era. The first public performance of any of the songs was when Lynn did it for the Obamas at the White House, and then when we were performing on Broadway, it was during their last term in office, and so there was a sort of hopefulness to the idea of centering Black bodies around the story of the founding of the country. In more recent years, it's become, I think, a little more. There's a little more of an implicit thing attached to it, where if you like this show, if this show makes you feel patriotic in the way that this show normally makes people feel, it also implies that you have to take care of the people who are performing this show. I think it should imply that then you also care about the lives of Black folks and should be willing to fight to make this country actually representative of the people who you enjoy watching perform your founding fathers and mothers. You know?
Yeah.
Now, David, you said earlier that it's difficult to get tickets to get in Hamilton in the first place, to get on Broadway in the first place, right? But how difficult was it to get the role in Hamilton?
I mean, Lynn basically wrote it for me. It wasn't, I didn't, I don't think I would have got it if I had had to audition or anything. I've never done a Broadway show before. It wasn't a community I was familiar with. And that was another sort of great thing about the show, is it exposed a lot of us to a world that I didn't have Broadway aspirations, you know? I just like doing plays and writing rap songs. So but I knew Lynn and Tommy Kail, our director, from a group we have called Freestyle Love Supreme. There's actually a documentary that just came out on Hulu called We Are Freestyle Love Supreme that it sort of tells the story of this group over the last bunch of years. But I know them through that world, and it was sort of through that I became aware of Hamilton, and Lynn asked me to do it. And it was, so while I wasn't auditioning, there was like a long, hard process of just creating the show. We were workshopping it for years. And I would, I wasn't living in New York at the time. I would like fly sort of randomly to New York to spend 5 days working on the music or whatever. It takes a long time to put a play together. So I probably started working on it around 2013, maybe 2012 even. Mm-hmm. And it had already been workshopped for a year or so before that, you know?
Yeah. And David, so my daughter, as I said in the introduction, is probably one of your biggest fans. You probably hear this from so many people. But she sent me some questions for you. So one of them is, she's asking, Thomas Jefferson and Lafayette are both very dynamic characters, yet you managed to give them both unique personalities and individuality. What steps did you take to bring these two very diverse characters to life?
Oh, what a great question. They're very different people with very different journeys. So Lafayette's story is one of kind of coming over. He was part of a class of French aristocracy who would come over to the US it was like a status symbol in France during this period to come over and become an American, to get high up in the American army, you know? But he would end up becoming a great general. He very much cared about these ideas of liberty, mm-hmm. That Americans were fighting for. And so his journey is one of coming over and not really knowing any of the customs and being sort of a fish out of water to becoming like a great general in the war and becoming a really important person to George Washington and meeting all of his best friends. So it's sort of like a fish out of water story. Jefferson is, the most privileged person to ever live is how we play him in that show. And that's not far off. He wrote that his earliest memories of being like carried around in a basket by his slaves. So with Jefferson, I had the opportunity to play someone who's never had to work for anything. And we meet him when he's being wheeled around the stage by his slaves. He doesn't even walk for himself. He doesn't think about anything. He walks downstairs and throws his cane without looking, and somebody else catches it and they all grab his suitcase. He's walking on rose petals the whole time. And he didn't fight a day. He spent the whole revolution in France just being a rich dude. Yeah. And so they're very different people. Jefferson's sort of arrogance is kind of unearned, but he's a smart guy. And then Lafayette sort of discovers a greatness within himself via a lot of hard work.
In your acceptance speech at the Tonys, you mentioned something that was so heart-rendering when you said your parents gave you the opportunity just to be different. You gave a wonderful story of your dad and you doing something for your preschool. Now, what advice would you give to young musical theater students or performers or even young actors? Because you've done so much from 2015 to now. You've accomplished so much.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people only knew me as starting around 2015, right? But like I've been an artist my whole life, and the thing I always tell young people is don't wait. There's this misconception that you have to wait to be put in something. But I don't know, we didn't do that. I grew up with a community of artists and we were making things our whole lives. I've been creating art for a long time and just putting it out there, and not waiting for permission. So when these opportunities came along, I've had the skill set to sort of rise to the occasion. But artists make art. You can't wait to be told to do so. And these days it gets easier and easier. The technology exists for you to create your own stuff. You know, if you want to make movies, make a movie. Get together with some friends and make one. If you want to put on a play, you know, the great thing about theater is you don't need anything but a space and an audience. And what we're discovering in quarantine is maybe not even a space sometimes. There's some really great Zoom theater of late too. So you know, you don't have to wait for that. I think you can be honing your skills and doing whatever you want right now. And there's no difference. This is the other thing that I think was a great shock to me, right? I was on Broadway, which I never thought would happen to me. And it's the same, feels exactly the same as every community theater play I've ever done, as every school play I ever did. The muscle is the same muscle. If you're doing a play in your school right now, when you get to Broadway, it will feel just like that.
Well, you know, that actually was what I was going to ask you next, because I know we've listed a bunch of your achievements since Hamilton, but, you know, you have the opportunity now to be, well, since Hamilton kind of exploded your career into a different place, into a different space. How does it feel being able to just access all of these things a lot easier now, and that trajectory for your career?
Yeah, it's nice. It is. Access is the exact word. You know, you spend a lot of time being like, hey, look over here. I think what I'm doing is pretty good. Does anybody want, you know? And then for me, sort of post-Hamilton, all of a sudden everybody was like, hey, look over there. What he's doing is really good.
Yeah.
And it opens a lot of doors, but you know, you got to kind of be careful about that too. It's a weird business, man. And it's an interesting game, and just because the doors are open doesn't necessarily mean you want to walk through them.
Right.
And there's a lot to learn. And then these days in particular, it comes along with a kind of responsibility. Who else can I walk through these doors while they're open? You know, Lynn and Tommy sort of walked me through a door. They paid their success forward. And so like, now what can I do to help other sort of deserving artists who people don't know yet? You know, Hollywood is a weird machine, and it's short-sighted.
Yeah.
And sometimes, it genuinely wants new people, but has no idea how to get it. And so it's kind of up to those of us who have a little bit of a crack in the door to kind of push it open a little wider and say, hey, come on, they're not looking.
Come to Trinidad and Tobago, lots of talent here, as you probably know.
I think about it all the time. I love that country. You know, my time there is some of like my fondest memories ever, and the talent is insane.
Yeah.
And I love, you know, and I love that y'all make it. You don't wait. Y'all are out there making things.
Yes.
And I think like the eyes will come to it. I'm not even really allowed to discuss the project. I'd been working with the late Tony Hall though quite a bit in the last few months before he passed away. And that was such an incredible experience for me, because he was really just helping me on some things, but through that, getting to learn a lot more than I ever knew about the history. And
David, we have a hard stop. Go on.
Oh, sorry.
Go on,
Sorry,
no, go on.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Oh, no. Just saying the history as it relates to art, learning like an artistic history from him had been really wonderful for me.
Yeah. We have a hard stop for the news at 7 o'clock, but I have been listening to the soundtrack of Hamilton now like for so many times, and you have the fastest rap, Guns and Ships. Can you still do it, you think? Rokas and I said, we'll be the company. We'll be Lafayette.
I literally don't remember the words.
Oh, no. You know, Rokas was like, he's not going to do it.
I was like, that was so long ago. So long ago.
Oh, my gosh. You must have known we were going to ask you to give us just a little bit of song.
I'm sorry. I wish I
Can you rap that fast still, though? Can you still rap that fast?
Of course.
That's not that fast is the thing. Like, that's just Broadway fast. That's which is not really a thing. That's not that fast.
Well,
it's a mid-tempo rap.
Yeah, David, speaking of fast rapping, what's going on with clipping? Are you still doing music with clipping?
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
We got another album coming out in October.
Nice.
We put one out last October, and the masters are just done. I just listened to them. Sounds good. I'm excited. More fast murder raps.
Hey, nice.
You know, the fun thing is David, actually, just the other day, I realized that you actually have clipping fans here in Trinidad.
Get out.
Yeah. For real.
Listen, you just have fans, period, in Trinidad and Tobago.
We gotta come. Whenever the world opens up, I'm trying to come play a show in Trinidad.
Yeah,
Nice,
man.
very nice. Well, David Diggs, thank you so much for joining us live.
Thank you for having me, really. I appreciate it.
It was so great. And I know Gabrielle would have got up just to see
Just
you
to
this
see you.
morning. Just to see you this morning. And she knows your entire rap by heart from Hamilton.
Oh, well, good. She should do it then.
Continue to be safe. She will. Have a good day. Have a good one.
Thanks,
Take care.
David.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Yeah, she knows it, you know.
Yeah, inside out, right?
Lafayette. That's the only part I know, Lafayette.
Yeah, that's the
That
only
was
part I
a
know,
wonderful
yeah.
interview, very inspiring. But we got to kick it upstairs.